This conference will now be recorded.
Very good. Thank you, Andrew. Um, Everybody, welcome to the Thursday, August 19th meeting of the Town of Mono Planning, Environment, and Natural Heritage Committee, PENHC, or as I will refer to it in the short form during the rest of the meeting, the Planning Committee. So welcome everybody to that. We've called the meeting to order. On the agenda, if you've seen it on the website, at this point in time, our point number 2 is that we point out emergency exits. You all are in your own homes or offices, so you know if you've got a problem where to go to get out. Before I go to point number 3, which is declarations of pecuniary interest for the committee members, I'm going to do something which I was remiss in the last meeting that we had. For those of you, if we were in an in-person meeting, the committee members would be sitting at the front of the room. You would know who we are. But since we're on GoToMeeting here, you don't know who we are. So I'm going to introduce our committee members to you. I'm Bob McCrae, and I'm the chair of the committee of the planning committee, as I will now refer to it. We have Barbara Jalaface, we have Diane Walmsley, we have Jerry Reed, and last but not least, John Riley. So thank you, everybody. So for all of our guests in the virtual gallery, there's your committee, the planning committee. We are all residents of Mono and volunteers on this committee. So having done that, and I'll do that in the future, to the committee members, if you have any declarations of pecuniary interest, you can declare them now or at any other point during the meeting. So do we have any committee members, any pecuniary interest? And seeing none, I'm going to move on then. Point number 4, the approval of the agenda of our last, I'm sorry, excuse me. I'm getting ahead of myself. Approval of the agenda for this meeting. Do I have a mover, please? John moves it, seconded by Jerry Reed. All in favor, or if from now on, I will just say if you're opposed to it, it's easier to do that. Next point number is number 5, which is the approval of our minutes of our last planning committee session, 02 of 2021. Susan sent them to us from committee members. Any questions, comments, corrections to those minutes? And seeing none, can I have a mover to approve those, please?
I will move them as read.
Jerry moving it, thank you. And a seconder, please. Diane Walmsley seconding it. And anybody opposed to this? I see none, so the minutes of the last planning committee session are approved. The next thing on our agenda in number 6 is a public question period. Before we do that, I'm going to take just a couple of minutes to explain a few things about the planning committee, and that might answer some potential questions. But some of you have probably never been to a planning committee meeting, so I think it's important that we just let you know what the committee is about, and also our process that we're going to go through at our meeting tonight. So although it doesn't exactly say it in our title, the Planning, Environment, and Natural Heritage Committee is an advisory committee to council. So we will be holding a planning committee meeting, public meeting tonight. And after that, we will be making a recommendation to council. Council's job, because this is an application for a zoning bylaw amendment, council's job, they will hold a legal statutory public meeting, which will probably be very similar to what we're going to do tonight. But at the end of that, it is council who can make the legal decision on a zoning bylaw amendment. So again, if that's clear, this is an advisory committee. I do recommend to anybody in attendance here tonight that in addition to attending this meeting tonight, you should also attend the legal statutory public meeting that council will hold. It has not been scheduled yet. I saw the agenda for council's meeting next Tuesday, the 24th. It is not on there. So I'm expecting it probably will be on their next meeting, which will be in September. But please just keep watching the website for that. Next thing I want to do here, and again, anticipating some possible questions, is to just go through our meeting process, which is the same at all of our meetings here. But it is important that you understand this. To begin, I'll introduce the subject of the public meeting. I will ask David Trotman, our Director of Planning, to give us some background on that. Next, the applicant will have their opportunity to explain their application, what it is about, and why we should consider it. After the applicant's presentation, the committee members will ask questions or comments of the applicant. Once the committee members have done all of that, their questions and the like, and have exhausted that, then I will open the floor up to any residents who are online for comments or questions and that of the applicant, of the Director of Planning, or whatever. So we will make sure, and this to me is important in terms of public participation in our political process. We will make sure that everybody who wants to speak to this has an opportunity to do that. I will ask only one favor, that if somebody has brought up a point that you also agree with, that rather than just repeating the whole point, to just indicate I agree with this point or that point, and that way we won't have repetition. If you've got new points, by all means, we do want to hear those. Once all of the public members have asked questions or made comments, we will close the public meeting. And at that point in time, then, members of the public will not be speaking anymore, but that's the point in time when the 5 members of the planning committee will discuss the application, and then we will come up tonight with a recommendation to the Mono Council. So, committee members, I think I've covered everything. Anybody think of anything that I missed? And seeing none, thank you for indulging me with that. But I do think it is important, and sometimes during public question period, we've had questions about the process. So I will end with that. And with that, then I'm going to move on to point number 6, which is the public question period. So if any residents in attendance tonight, if you have any questions at this point in time, we'd love to hear them, and we'll answer them to the best of our ability. So with that, is there anyone from the public attending tonight who has any other questions? You will have an opportunity to ask questions about the application during the part that I've just described. So hearing none or seeing none, then I am going to open the public meeting. So thank you everyone for attending. Thank you for your patience and indulgence in listening to what I've just said here. So public meeting here, this is session of the Planning Committee 03 of 2021. And this is consideration of an application for a zoning bylaw amendment to the Town of Mono zoning bylaw 78-1 as amended per section 34 bracket 13 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, registration 545/06. And again, it's obvious here the town, this is a virtual meeting as allowed in accordance with the provincial COVID protocols. So again, application number here is ZBA 01-2021. Applicants William Dandy, president of Dandex Holdings, Inc. Subject property is 20535 Highway 9, Town of Mono, Ontario, L9W 6J3. It's concession 4 EHS, the east part of Lot 1, Town of Mono. Zoning is Rural A. And you know what? For good order's sake, I'm going to read through this, and then I am going to turn this over to Dave Trotman. Purpose of this application is to obtain the necessary planning approvals to permit the property located at 207535 Highway 9 to be used as a seasonal wedding venue. The proposed amendment would create a special exception within the existing Rural A zone to add in quotation marks, seasonal wedding event venue, end of quote, as a permitted use for 80 guests and parking for up to 40 vehicles. The proposed wedding venue would be available from late spring to early fall. Only one event would occur per week at all events. Only one event would occur per week, and all events would be held on Saturdays. Ceremonies would be held under a tent, which would be installed and removed for each service, and would be subject to obtaining any required permits from the town. With that, I think I've done my job here, and so now I'd like to turn it over to David Trotman, our Director of Planning, to make some more comments and introductions to the application. David, are you with us? There you go.
I am, if everyone can hear me. So thank you, Chair Craig. Yeah, this is for file number 2021-01. It's for a proposed amendment to the existing zoning as a rural special use proposal. It's for a wedding venue, and if I have my facts correct, it would add a wedding venue to an existing bed and breakfast operation, which can be considered a permissible use under the zoning bylaw, provided it meets the provisions under home occupation. It's for allowing, I believe it's about up to 80 persons at any one Saturday venue with parking of up to 40 cars. That would allow for commercial type tents to accommodate receptions on the site. Those tents require a permit, an Ontario Building Code permit, because they are commercial, even though they're probably in most cases, if not all cases, quite temporary. And that would require municipal approval as well in terms of setbacks and coverage, so forth, from the town in each and every case. The lands are within the Greenbelt Plan area, and the large portion are protected countryside designation under the Greenbelt Plan, with another portion of natural heritage. And of course, they're zoned Rural A zone under the town's zoning bylaw 78-1. The lands would fall within jurisdiction of the Credit Valley Conservation Authority, although they often align comments with the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority. They're sort of the lead CA for Mono area. They would also, for example, confer with the RMO, the risk management officer that's a resident at NVCA. They would look at such matters of natural heritage impact. I'm speaking generally now here. And they, where permissions would be allowed, could issue a conditional permit. And usually that does come with a number of conditions on it. But again, I'm speaking in general terms now. I think at this point, I could probably turn it over to the applicant's consultant, planning consultant, Melanie Horton. But I guess the only other thing I should mention here is that we did have, of course, agency circulation comments. We did get a number of comments back. MTO,
Callers, can I ask you to mute until the point in time? Although I don't know if callers can mute, so. Don't know, Dave, carry on.
As well as the town engineer. I believe those are posted online, and they were, of course, circulated to the applicant. Many of those comments are matters that would be considered under site plan control. So that's a process that would follow any approved zoning amendment if that amendment in fact is successful. The only other thing I would mention is that with MTO's comments, they have restricted that access would have to be off the 4th line. So this property is at the northwest corner of the 4th line in Highway 9, north side, of course, with a proviso for emergency access off Highway 9 entrance only, and only meaning emergency access only. Other than that, there may be other matters or reports that may be required as part of the review of this application, such as an agricultural impact assessment. These lands have a candidate agricultural overlay by OMAFRA, the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture. There may be a need for a noise report. That is cited in my report. There may be a need for a traffic report. The use, does reflect some of the policy permissions in the PPS and the Greenbelt Plan. But again, those tests for any one use are not at any cost. They have to be reviewed on a site basis or specific basis relative to other aspects that may come into play in actually making a decision on the actual amendment. Beyond that, as Chair McCray has said, there will be a meeting required in front of council if council chooses to have that meeting, of course, and then of course they can, council that is, make a decision on this application. For now, though, they will be probably anticipating a recommendation from this committee, the Plan Committee, Plan Environmental Natural Heritage Committee, and that's why we're here tonight. I also, it's good to know that people have gotten the circulation that we sent out and that they've had an opportunity to comment. I think we've captured anyone within the required area to do so. That would be done again as part of any meeting in front of council, of course. But it does also give committee the chance to consider these comments that have been coming in over the past few days and or weeks leading up to this meeting tonight. I think with that, I could probably turn this over to the presentation by the applicant. The owner's Mr. Bill Dandy. He has a manager, Alex Collins, who's also online, but I believe their planning consultant, Melanie Horton, is going to do a presentation for committee and those in attendance. Thank you.
Hey, very good. Thank you, David. So applicant, if you could introduce yourself, please let us know who you are and begin your presentation, please.
Thank you, Chair McCray and members of the committee, and thank you, David, for the overview. My name is Melanie Horton. I'm with Escher Planning Incorporated, and I represent, in this case, Bill Dandy, has been mentioned, is the owner, and I've been working closely with Alex Collins, who's been shepherding this proposal through the process from last fall. I've got some slides here. Susan, am I able to share those? There we go. See if I can get this to work here. Can everyone see that screen now? I deal with so many of these virtual platforms. GoToMeeting's not one I use every day, but are you able to see the screen?
I can.
Okay, great.
Good.
Excellent. And some of this will be repetitive, as Chair McRae and David have given some of the details of the application, but I just wanted to provide some additional context around what we're looking for in terms of approvals here for the zoning bylaw amendment. So as has been mentioned, the property is located on Highway 9. It's on the north side of Highway 9, west of 4th Line East, and you can see it sort of in the center of this air photo here on the screen. It's about 4 hectares in size, and the existing structures on the property include a dwelling, some accessory structures. There are 2 frame barns, and there's a log cabin on the site as well. Access is currently from a driveway located on the 4th line, and as also was mentioned by David, there was an access or is an access off or onto Highway 9. It is closed at the moment, and the intent is that that would be available strictly for emergency vehicle access. The surrounding land uses, as you can see from the air photo here, are primarily agricultural and rural residential, and there are also a number of highway commercial uses located just to the west of the site on Highway 9. So the proposal would add a provision to the zoning bylaw. So the zoning is currently rural, zone A, and what we're looking to do here is add a seasonal wedding venue as one of the permitted uses on the site. That seasonal use would typically be during the period from May to September in any given year, with events to be held on Saturdays, 1 event per week. The groups would be up to a maximum of about 80 people attending the event, with event space in the form of a portable or a temporary tent. And as David mentioned, those tents do require a building permit, and those would be obtained for each individual event. There's also overnight accommodation for up to 16 guests and a parking area for up to 40 vehicles. You can see here, this is a little bit small, but this site plan is included in the application package. You can see the parking area and event area on the east side of the site here, and the purple are the existing structures on the property. There's no new buildings proposed, and in terms of servicing, the intent is to use temporary or portable porta potties for each of the events, together with the existing on-site water and sewage system. There was a pre-submission consultation virtual meeting held discussion in September of 2019, actually, and then in November, the town had provided some preliminary comments in terms of application requirements. The zoning bylaw application was submitted in February of this year and is supported by a planning justification report, a set of site plans, and a traffic report. And further to some sort of recent discussions with the municipality, Alex has been in touch with a noise consultant who would be able to prepare an assessment if that's required. The planning justification report includes an analysis of the proposed use in the context of the relevant local and provincial planning policy. We've heard already that the site is within the Greenbelt Plan area, and it's protected countryside. There's a small portion in the natural heritage system at the northerly part of the property, but as we've indicated, there's no new structures proposed, so that the structures that are on site today would remain in use. And that's just another image there of the site plan overlaid on the air photo. You can see there's a pond here on the property. There's a small cabin on the property, as well as the house and the 2 barn structures. So at this point, I'd like to ask Bill if he'd like to offer sort of his comments and perspective on the application.
Thank you, Melanie. Hi, everyone. It's Bill Dandy. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
I can.
Perfect. Thank you. I just wanted to provide some more information on my background and the intent of the property. I love history, so I want to give you some of the history on the property, as well as what we plan to do with it. So in 2016, a business that I was running in Mississauga, I moved to Orangeville, where we currently are on Sea Line. So we're employing people locally in a business that designs and manufactures security fittings for smartphones and retail stores. At the same time, I was looking for accommodations, and this house, the one that we're talking about, was for sale. It was held by Barry Brand. Barry was an antique dealer that for many years he was able to refinish antiques and sell them from his property, as well as Cheryl, his wife, had a small little spa on the front porch. So when I bought the property, it had this small cabin on the property, and the story goes is that years ago, when the Dodds severed the property into 4 parcels, there was too much square footage under roof, and they had to take down the big bank barn. So now that sits as a stone wall structure. That's where the tents are specified to be. So with the lumber that was left aside, Barry was able to construct a small iconic cabin on a small half-acre pond just down on the same property. When I bought the property, I saw the benefit of sharing this with especially people from the city to connect with nature, and it became a very popular area for people to come from Toronto and spend the night or a couple nights. Actually, we probably have 60 wedding proposals on the property because it is that special. And the first couple actually came from Lyon, France. And they were the first ones. He popped the question on that property. So soon after the traffic started to increase through the bed and breakfast, the point of maybe running a wedding on the property came about. If you were to visit the property, you would see it's almost made for a small wedding venue, where the family can take accommodations, but also be able to have a small intimate wedding. The tent is placed into the barn foundation, and portable washroom facilities are brought on. So there's really no environmental impact other than the cars driving onto the lawn and other slight instances. So my intent with the space is based on my philosophy. If you were to look into who I am, I'm focused on the environment. I run an eco education center just in Simcoe County. It's called Ketchum House. I bought this from the Ketchums, who built it from 1996 to 1998, and they opened their doors to their home every year on Earth Day. As we all know, Earth Day is once a year, and that's not good enough to pass a message on to people of how to live a little bit more respectfully. So the environment is very important to me. So any choices that we're making with regards to any changes will be very light. And also historically, this property was homesteaded by the Spears. The Dodds had actually lived there. When I redid the windows, because you can imagine they were, I wouldn't say original windows, but they had that beautiful kind of bubbly look, and definitely there was a lot of drafts. I spent the extra money to camber the tops, right? And so that house is very important to me and the staff that works there. We employ one full-time property manager. As you can imagine, it's a large property, and an older property has a lot of upkeep. His wife also, Ingrid, works there to help prepare the rooms for switchovers, and we also have other students working on the property to maintain it. So our intent is just to keep the property as it has been for the last 150 years, and simply bring in a tent and porta potty and be able to have people create memories. Are there any questions?
Sorry, I just unmute that. Does that, Melanie and Bill, then, does that complete your presentation?
Yes, for me it does. Melanie?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, very good, thank you. So as I said during my introduction there, at this point in time now, it's the time when committee members will ask questions and make comments, and that Diane, since you may have to deal with small children, I think it's smart to start with you, please. Questions, comments?
Okay. Hi, everybody. On its face, just from my position as a member on this committee, hold on. No, thank you. Not right now.
Could we turn the PowerPoint presentation off so that I could see Diane?
Good idea, John. Thank you.
I don't see too many. Lucky, please. I don't see too many issues on its face, and I agree with largely with the Burnside recommendation of minor things. I do find a lot of the concerns of the local residents to be alarming, specifically the note from Joe Lisanti of the reports of the burning of garbage and the dumping of human waste. So, you know, changing, for me as a member of this committee, you know, changing the zoning to include a venue when we're not building any buildings or anything like that is, you know, a once a week wedding on a Saturday, I think is fine. But going onto other people's properties, burning garbage and plastic, dumping of human waste is of a certain amount of concern to me. And so I would like to see something that sort of mitigates those potential actions. If that's a concern of citizens, that's something we should definitely be listening to. There was mention just for the applicant, a lot of concern about the septic capability and also the well capability. And just as a point, for whoever, I forget who did the traffic report, it's almost illegible. We need a much better font. I don't know if you guys, I had a heck of a time reading that thing. That has nothing to do with the applicant, but oh my goodness. Yeah, increasing the parking amount on the property or decreasing the capacity that you're requesting. 40 parking spots is not going to be enough for 80 people if you're including catering staff, the people who work there, like the cleaning staff, the musicians, and so on and so forth. So I would definitely take that into consideration. That is the bulk of what I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Diane. Jerry, I see your mic is on, so I'll ask you to speak next, please. Jerry Reed.
Okay, I have a number of questions. Number one, I'd like to know how come the Highway 9 access was closed to start with. That maybe, well, that did have to do with this applicant. That access was always the Dodds and homes before them driveway off Highway 9, and I wondered if because of the traffic, did Highway 9, the MTO, think that there was going to be too much traffic? That's a question. Second question I have is seasonal and Saturday nights. That's pretty easy to say when you make an application, but if somebody comes and wants a Friday night wedding, what's to stop that? The third question I have is, we talked about the tent, but I know that on July the 10th, the one of the tents at least, and I wasn't in, but the one tent was certainly not in the barn foundation. It was out on the lawn. And so again, I guess a fourth question I have is absentee owners. And a lot of this stuff has been brought forward by the other neighbors. I've read all their reports and was privy to having a lot of them visit me before because I'm on the committee, and I'm not sure whether that was good or whether it was bad, but they certainly made me aware of what their thoughts are, and it's been in all the reports. I'm sure the committee members have all read all the reports, everything from septage to water supply to where the runoff's going to fire to trespassing. All those points have been brought forward, and they're all very valid. I'd have to say that they are valid, and even the noise. In the spring, there was, and I can attest to this myself personally, that there was fireworks different nights from down that way. I wouldn't say they were right from on that location, but if they weren't, why, my ears are deceiving me. So anyway, those are all considerations that I think we have to take into consideration. The owner being an absentee owner, it makes it a pretty commercial operation. If something goes wrong, why, I'm not sure how accountable people are, and I'm not saying this owner is not accountable. However, I will say that, and the town should be aware of this, there's buildings been put there, changed there, et cetera, that there was certainly no posting for building permits. And so they're just there, and we refer to them all the time as the cabin and the frame structures, et cetera. But they just kind of showed up and whatever, and we can use the excuse that yes, they were out of the old barn, and yes, they were. But is that in fact what we want to do? And I say that because I live not very far from it, and I don't think we can just change things willy-nilly and not be accountable for what's happening. So my concerns are, I think the neighbors have spoken, and I think those are all concerns that are going to show up to council and whatever. I guess my other comment is not to do particular with the applicant, but our own administration sent these letters out to places where they shouldn't have went. And a week ago, Saturday, I guess I had the first barrage of local neighbors and one thing and another, and they certainly were not within 120 meters of the said property. And so I think that's our own administration problems, and I think we got to be accountable for that as well. So anyway, that's my comments on it. I could go on here forever. I've made quite a few notes, but I think the applicant should be aware of those, and I'm sure he is. I do really, and I looked at the Burnside report as well, and another report here at the end of it talks about an Appendix 1. Conservation Authority jurisdiction indicates that the majority of the subject lands is within the Grand River Conservation Authority. There is none of it within the Grand River Conservation Authority. So I'm not sure who wrote that or whatever, but it certainly isn't. It's in Metro Toronto, and it's in Credit Valley Conservation, and within 2 miles of it, the Nottawasaga Conservation, but it's not, Grand Valley has nothing to write off about it. So should be aware of that when we make reports, and whenever we see that from a planning and administration point of view, I'm truly disappointed in that. I really am. I think that accountability on our own part means that we got to look at that. And I'm an old fart. I've been around here and I've dealt with all the conservation authorities except the Grand River, and I know that because of land that I rent and I work and I have to get permits for and one thing and another. It has nothing to do with the Grand Valley Conservation Authority. In fact, it's 10 or 15 miles away from it. So that Appendix 1 that's in there.
Yeah, Jerry, it's a good point, and I'm going to ask Dave Trotman and Susan Pottle to make a note of that for the future. So I do agree with that. And any other comments about the specific application, though, please?
Not particularly. It is zone A, agriculture. We're trying to farm right beside it. And in the past, I've had comments whenever I was spreading animal waste, and because it's a zone A farming agricultural zone, I don't think that I should be battling those type of battles, and I don't want to start doing it at this point in time. So anyway, no, I will end my comments there, but it was zoned Rule A for a reason on the official plan. I think that's what we've got to look at. And I appreciate what Dave's saying. There is other uses for Zone A, but anyway, I will pass at that point in time.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Jerry. Barbara, are you there? Can you unmute if you have any questions or comments, please?
Well, the first thing is I have a point of interest. That property is designated under, it's listed under the heritage property of interest, and that wasn't included in our report. Secondly, driving up and down that area, I think 120 meters is not enough distance to locate or to notify people of changes to a zoning amendment. Now back to the residents. I'm somewhat concerned about the tent being put up on the day before and taken down. Is that tent inspected to location? I'm sure there's got to be generators. There's got to be more than one tent for a wedding venue. Probably a tent for the food and the cooking and what have you. Generators, are they included? Do they need a permit for fireworks? All of these things need to be talked about and taken into consideration. Dumping of waste, well, you know, I mean, that's a bylaw infringement. But they call the property a wedding venue. Does that mean they can only do weddings there? I think there's a few more questions that need to be answered. And driving up and down and taking notes of the emergency numbers of the people who actually were interested in it. Most of the people on the fourth line are of concern. So I hope that they will have an opportunity to address this item as well. At any rate, please note that it was listed as in 2016 as a property of interest. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Barbara. Last but not least, John Riley, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Perhaps most of my questions might be to Mr. Trotman and our planner. And most of them for clarification. First off, the notice of the public meeting, the notice of our meeting is for an amendment for a seasonal wedding event venue. But your planning report is for an amendment to deal with, to change its use to that of an event venue. So you need to tighten up your language on this, please, so that it's clear in your planning report that you are dealing with the same language, the seasonal wedding event venue, as is in the notice to the public. I think it's could be, I found it quite confusing. So I looked online and this successful business is in fact advertised as an event venue, not as a seasonal wedding event venue, and a hotel. So, you know, it's had 500 plus reviews. That means 500 plus customers. It is a successful business. So just for my reference on this, Mr. Trotman, is what the owners are doing now in relation to events, is that in contravention of the current zoning?
David, during this time, can I ask you to keep your video on, please, so that if you don't mind, please? Can you hear me, David?
I can hear you, Bob. Yeah, my microphone's on.
Okay, thank you. So John's question?
Well, there has been some interest about that fact. A rural A zone permits a home occupation, which could permit a bed and breakfast, but that's of course with the homeowner there. That's what a B&B is.
Okay, so you're saying it is in contravention?
Based on what you just indicated to me, Mr. Riley, I would say that's a fair point and probably a factual one.
So if it's in contravention, what compliance efforts has the town made in this regard?
Well, I was on
This has
holiday
been
for the
going
first
on
week.
for 5
Sure.
years.
I'll answer your question. So I was away for the first weeks of August, and there were some inquiries made about ongoing uses, and our municipal bylaw enforcement officer did attend that site. There's an ongoing investigation to the existing uses on that site. With respect to the
That would be good for you. I would just say that would be good for you to reflect in the planning report, because of course it raises
the planning
the question.
report was prepared before I went on holiday, so
There you go. I know you'll be tuning it up for later meetings, and I'm just
well, there will be
tune that up.
Yeah, I mean, planning committee makes a recommendation to council, so this application is probably going to find its way to council with further information in accompanying it. As for the seasonal aspect, I mean, it's inferred on page 2 of my report.
So just to continue that, Mr. Trotman, so I had the privilege this week of paying my property taxes, and sent out with the property taxes, of course, is a useful summary of my mill rate that I pay, and I noticed that a commercial business pays twice the mill rate of residential, and of course considerably more than the farm mill rate. So I take it this contravention of the zoning bylaw is also somewhat misleading with regard to the property taxes that have been paid on this business. Is that reasonable to say? And is there any recourse in this regard, or is that part of your investigation?
Well, it will be a fulsome investigation, and surely that will be part of the review as part of that separate investigation. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how far the chair wants to take that in this meeting venue for planning committee. It's about the application at hand, but I think I've answered your questions fairly.
Well, it goes to intent.
There's an ongoing investigation.
Reason as to why this request, because if the current activities are within the current zoning, then why request the change? Is it a change to increase what's over and above what's currently going on, etc.? So this is why it's important, I think, to have that investigation completed so that those making decisions will have some idea of what the expected zoned land use is, what the actual is, and then what the proposed is.
That came to light only recently, and that's why there's a current ongoing investigation. So the meeting for tonight was already scheduled.
I think it's been on the internet for a number of years. So I asked a couple of questions, David, about the agency comments, and I did pick up on that bit about the Grand River Conservation Authority. That was somewhat shocking, given that was WSP advice to Dufferin, I think, and then Dufferin passes that advice on to the town. So it would be also good in the preamble of WSP's comments to say what they're making these comments for. They're doing it on behalf of Dufferin County, and they don't do that. The thing that comes up with this is that I think Burnside is quite accurate in their suggestion that the number of parking spots, this 40-car parking lot, will be inadequate. So let's say it's 50. Anyway, let's just guess it'll have to be increased. So I look at the WSP comments, and they talk about this being on the bottom of page 3, natural features and being within 120 meters of a woodlot, and it describes the implications of being adjacent and that sort of thing, such as requiring an environmental impact study, and then says that it doesn't need an environmental impact study because the application proposes no new site alteration on the subject land. So as a planner, I ask you to reflect closely on whether a 40 to 50 space parking lot beside an identified woodlot, as WSP reports it to be, requires an environmental impact study. It is a site alteration, and Burnside, I think, goes out of their way to suggest that it be hard topped so that it can be controlled with regard to its groundwater flow. Does that make sense, David?
Well, the comments from WSP clearly through Dufferin County are, yeah, that's a misstep on their point to suggest this is in Grand Valley. It's obviously CVC. So that's a mistake. I'm sure that happens, but it's wrong. You're right. That aside, the comments
No.
we circulate to are,
Yeah,
well,
I
let me finish. The comment circulation we sent out to was, of course, to CVC, and we've aligned with NVCA because they often partner with comments on applications of mono, given the NVCA jurisdictional area.
My
No,
question
I can't argue the fact that there's a mistake in the WSP comments.
Guys,
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to remind Mr. Trotman of the question that I asked with regard to whether or not a 40 to 50 space parking lot constitutes site alteration under the definition of site alteration that is part and parcel of the Planning Act and the provincial policy statement.
Could very well be, depending on the design program.
Right. So I would ask you to reflect that in your planning report as well as that goes forward.
However, if it was 50 cars on a lawn, I don't know if that's site alteration.
That's not what is being proposed.
Well, no, but I'm making a distinction. So, I mean, if they are going to do grading and site work, then that could capture the policy required in the Greenbelt plan for sure.
Gentlemen, we're dealing with what is being proposed, and a parking lot is being proposed. So
Bingo.
John's a simple, straightforward question. A parking lot is being proposed. You know, I don't. Look, I'll have my chance when John's finished.
Yeah.
I consider that
I have
site
one more.
alteration.
I have one more thing just to ask or to comment on in general, and that is that I was much influenced by the comments of Mr. Penny and Mr. and Mrs. Dodds. The first of these really represents quite a devastating critique of Mono's compliance work, as seen from the ground level in that particular part of Mono, the town of Mono. So I'm very sympathetic with the time and effort that Mr. Penny put into those comments. The same with those by Mr. and Mrs. Dodds. Clearly, they are speaking with exactitude about something which is, I think, dealt with more generally in Mr. Trotman's planning report under the growth plan, which talks about the general rationale for resource-based recreational uses. At the bottom of Mr. Trotman's second page of his report, and it confines it, those recreational uses should be limited to those that are compatible with the scale, character, and capacity of the resource in the surrounding rural landscape. And so I just offer, Mr. Chair, my own conclusion on this, which really is that my own recommendation to council is that this application be refused. And the reason that I would give is that it is incompatible with the character of the surrounding landscape, and that it should remain as rural A. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
John, thank you. And so, you know, keep that in mind for when we get to our discussion period. My turn here. And I'm not sure I'm going to be as kind as some of the other members have been in considering this. When I first, I'm going to be very blunt about this. When I first read this application, at first blush, it seemed quite benign and should cause no problems. But as I got thinking about it, one of the things when I got my degree in urban planning in 1976, and having been on this planning committee for 26 or 27 years, one of the prime things that we have always considered with any applications is the impacts, positive or negative, on existing residents and the surrounding area. I live in the Island Lake subdivision. We're in between a perfect storm with the CVC on the west side and the Orangeville Agricultural Society, or as they like to brand themselves now, OAS Event Center to the north. And in non-COVID times, in the summer, I say it's a perfect storm of that because on weekends, the noise that we got from sometimes both the CVC and the OAS Event Center made our idyllic little 3/4 of an acre property here in the Island Lake subdivision quite intolerable. And the number of phone calls that I made to Mono's part-time bylaw enforcement officer about noise violations, I can't tell you how many of those there are, but none of them had any effect whatsoever. And that, so as I got thinking about this, and then as I read the many comments from the surrounding neighbors, this struck home with me very, very strongly, is that disrupting the local neighbors with an event every Saturday night from the spring through the summer, as I have my life disrupted here and all the residents of the Island Lake subdivision from the CVC and the OAS Event Center. I find that unacceptable, the possibility of that going on. So you can tell by my tone how seriously I take this and the comments from the other residents. But I'm now going to refer to some specific things in the planning justification report. And frankly, I find some of these absurd. And I don't mean to be unkind with that, but I have to express it in those terms. On page 7, you can see I have it here and I've highlighted it. On page 7, the third paragraph down, it talks about an economic opportunity that is compatible with the rural landscape and has broad economic benefits to the community. Well, quite frankly, I don't find events every Saturday night with bringing in people, no doubt most of them, and some of them even apparently as far away as France, compatible with the rural landscape. I don't find that at all. And the broad economic developments, and this, and I apologize for my tone, but I find that comment absolutely quite absurd because they're, for the life of me, I'm not an economist. I have a degree in urban planning and I spent 40 years of my life in high-tech industrial sales. I can't possibly see how there would be any broad economic developments to the community, but that what I can see is broad disruption of the local residents. I then turn to page 9 at the bottom, and it talks about encouraging municipalities to plan for a variety of cultural and economic opportunities within rural settlements to serve the needs, let me emphasize that, the needs of rural residents and area businesses. Again, needs, question mark, needs of rural residents. I don't know how many of Mono's rural residents are going to get married at this venue. So I'm not quite sure what, if any, needs, and I did spend 40 years of my life in professional sales, satisfying customers' needs. So this strikes a note with me. I don't see any of the local residents expressing a need for this type of commercial operation at that location. I'm going to move on then to, let me see, sorry, page 11 at the bottom. Proposed development is anticipated to have little impact on existing roads and generate little traffic. That may well be the case. These traffic studies sometimes are subjective in that. I can't say anything about that, but all we do know is that every Saturday night from the spring through the summer, that there will be increased traffic on those existing roads, and it will start when people arrive, and it will carry on through the night as people leave. So again, what the negative impact of all of that, which does not happen right now, will have on residents, we can only speculate on that. I can't see that it would be something very positive, so I'm not supportive of that. And the last one that I have here is on page 13. You can see that I've been thorough in looking through this, and it's at the top, the first paragraph. This one I find quite absurd also. It talks about providing adequate separation from adjacent rural uses and buffering from neighboring uses. And again, you're going to have amplified noise there, no doubt. You're going to have a lot of people there, no doubt. Trees, everybody knows, trees are 80% air. Noise goes right through them. If we've heard talk about fireworks going off here, 80 people. So I don't think that it is possible at all, unless you completely and keep everybody inside the mega tent that you're going to put up to buffer that from the neighboring uses. I know that the CVC over here can't do that. And they did propose a mega pavilion over there, which myself and neighbors fought and defeated. I know the OAS Event Center to the north of me here cannot buffer anything. So I don't believe that that's actually possible at all. This will affect the local neighbors, and it will affect them every Saturday night during the time of year when they want their windows open and want to enjoy the good weather that we have. I think that's about what I've got to say about that. There is no question in my mind. This will have a negative impact on the local residents. It will have a negligible economic benefit to the town of Mono. And I see one of our council members is on here. And frankly, I don't think they will buy into that this is going to be a huge economic boom to the town of Mono. With that, I will be supporting John's suggestion to tell council to turn this down. So with that, I'm going to end my comments. Committee members, before we turn this over to the public in attendance, any other comments, suggestions, anything? If not, seeing none, at this point in time, to residents who are in attendance, this is your opportunity to make comments, ask questions, and that. So I will ask you if you're wanting to do that. What we do need from you, your name and your address, please. So please start with that, and then your comments and questions and suggestions. Once we have heard from all of the residents in attendance, I will close the public meeting, and then the committee will deliberate on this more and come up with it. So this is your time to state your piece, please. So Penny, who's first here? You have to unmute yourself. Thank you. Sorry, we can only see the top of your head.
The rest of me is melted doing gardening.
There we go. Thank you. I'll turn it over to you. Thank you. Name and address, please.
Karen and Michael Penny, and we are at 833-218 4th line, 2.18 kilometers from this event center. First and foremost, all of the neighbors are wondering how this got to the planning committee. This gentleman is running a hotel against Mono bylaws. He is not a resident. He does not live there. This is a business. This is contrary to Mono bylaws. Other comments, Diane, you commented on these people running this every Saturday and it was okay. We can hear traffic from Highway 9, 2 kilometers away. You have neighbors that are thousands of meters away that can hear talking, that have had intruders on their property. There are fires going. Is anybody watching these fires and ensuring that they're out at the end of the night? There are so many issues with this. It's not just the noise, it's the drinking. It's using the 4th line to avoid going on Highway 9, to avoid being ticketed. We get that now. It's so many different things that are going to affect this 4th line property. You have quite a number of children. I believe we're up to a dozen now that are out on the road on the weekends, walking their dogs. And this is not just the weekends, they're out all through the week, walking their dogs, riding their bikes, going out with their parents. And now we've got to watch for all these extra individuals coming from Toronto, driving up dirt roads. And trust me, when they see the speed limit at 70 kilometers an hour or 80, that is what they do. And they don't care who's at the side of the road. I've been hit with gravel, and there are children who are now being taught how to avoid this situation. This is not the property to hold an event center, not a corporate event center. And this isn't just weddings. He's got right in the proposal that this could be corporate events. Is he going to deny a wedding on Saturday to hold a corporate event, or is this going to turn into 7 days a week?
I think John put it very eloquently when he mentioned the number of responses that have been posted as a plus to this site. And it is a beautiful site. There's no doubt about it. And it has the possibility of turning into a very successful site. I would strongly recommend that it'd be foolish to think there's only going to be one every Saturday night. There's going to be events during the week. I drove by the other day and there was quite a large event. People gathered around a campfire outside. Quite a large event going on. So this isn't just a Saturday night thing. This is, make no mistake about it, as we put in our letter, it's an operating hotel. It's advertised as a hotel. It's not a bed and breakfast. It's not an Airbnb. It's a hotel. And to all of a sudden try to smoke screen a wedding event down our throats, I think that's unconscionable. I really do. Anyway, that's enough.
Okay.
I would like to speak at this time.
Yes.
So there's as you can imagine, there's a lot that have these, and the resident of Mona during lockdown, and also I was in that house. This is my people allude to is on July the 10th. I offered the property to my friend John, who runs in Ontario, on Broadway in Orangeville, to use it for his daughter. I attended that wedding, so it's my personal property. Where at times where I need to be there, we vacations and go somewhere else. I'm not asking you to be at home all times, but there during COVID, it's my home, as well as that wedding everyone speaks of. attended that wedding, and it was a personal wedding. There was no financial transactions.
Okay. Thank you, Bill. Okay, Pennies, you're done now. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any other residents, please, who have any comments? Anybody else who would like to speak to this? Okay, thank you. Seeing none, at this point in time, then I will officially close the Planning Committee public meeting on this. And this is now the time. But please stay online so you can hear what we do. But this is the time when we will deliberate about it and come up with a recommendation to Mono Council. So committee, I said a lot of words there. Who wants to start this?
Hello, hello. Can you hear me? It's Mary Ellen Dodds.
Oh, sorry, Mary Ellen. I thought we just closed the meeting. You have
I'm
something
sorry. Yeah,
to
I was
say?
a little. I couldn't get to it fast enough. Sorry, I was sort of debating.
Yeah, Mary Ellen, I don't think it's out of line. I'll backtrack and I do want to hear from all the residents who are on here.
Well, one of my
Mary
biggest.
Ellen, where are you? Your address, please.
Oh yes, it's Mary Ellen and John Dodds, 833054, 4th line, EHS in Mono. And we are the immediately north of said property of this Airbnb hotel. And it was the original farm of my husband's family. And we're still on the north end of it. But my greatest concern, of course, one of them, and I've written in my letter about 8 or 9 of them points, but one of our greatest concerns is the fact of forest fire. And you have that number of people gathering together for events, and they're having a wonderful time, and they're drinking, and they're partying, and they're smoking, and they're having these little bonfires, these little pit fires. And this is we live in a forest. We planted all the trees that are surrounding this property. It started back in 1975. And I am so worried about forest fires. And that is something that could easily happen in this situation. So also, and about the noise, the time off noise. I know you have a bylaw in Mono about 11 o'clock at night for the cessation of noise at these bands and these orchestras and whatnot. But honestly, I was so close to calling the OPP at one point after a big party down at the cabin this summer. Went well past midnight, and all I could just hear was the boom, 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 boom from the bass. And it was pretty frustrating, and I did speak to Bill about it the next day. So, he's not here, of course. He's up north, and he's not available to control or to police this type of thing, and neither is his manager, Loretto, who doesn't live on the premises, who lives off the premises. So they just have full run of the property to whatever they want to do in it, and nobody's really copying it. And also, they have a big pond there. There's people in the pond. They're in little water crafts. I don't know what they're doing, but there's nobody. There's no lifeguards. And people do crazy things when they're around water, and there's lots of things. I could go on and on and on, but everybody can read what I've written in my statement that I wrote to the planning committee. So that's about what I have to say. Could you speak? Okay.
Thank you.
Hello. Hi.
Who is this?
I'm with Mary Ellen.
Okay.
Hi, this is Joe Lisanti. Joe Lisanti. I'm with Mary Ellen. We're on the same computer.
Yep. Joe,
I'm with the Dodds. Mary
your
Ellen.
address, please.
4789 Highway 9. I am directly across the property.
Thank you.
I'm on a farm directly across the property. Just one point, there's been many weddings. There hasn't just been one wedding. There's been at least a dozen weddings. And there's been 1,000 guests maybe over the few years with the cabin and the Airbnb. Another thing that happened last year, there was a wedding. Nobody was there. Like the people they rent the place actually Friday night to Sunday morning. So it's not just Saturday night. There's traffic Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday morning. One Saturday night, I'm outside taking the dogs out, lovely Saturday evening. All of a sudden, traffic stops on the highway, and there's at least 30 Chinese lanterns coming across the highway onto my property. That's these fireballs that, you light a candle and there's these fireballs. I have trees all around my home. There are a couple dead pine trees. One of those things lands in that pine tree, what's gonna happen there? So that's something that, yeah, you're not gonna, these people, they have a party. They're gonna do what they want. They're paying money for this property. They're gonna do what they want. So that's really all I have to say right now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Is there anybody else there with you?
Yes, there's another neighbor. She doesn't, Janice, she doesn't want to, she has nothing to say, and John and Mary Ellen are together. Yeah,
Okay.
the four of us are together, so.
It's
we're
not
good.
a problem. No, thank you.
The water runoff, I'm worried about.
Okay, do you want to say something?
John has something.
Okay, name and address, please.
John Dodds.
Something new that we have not already heard, please?
Yes.
833054, fourth line, EHS. It's the water runoff from this parking lot. That land will funnel that water all into our property. And it'll go through a culvert under the fourth line and end up in the Humber River eventually. So whether it's gravel or asphalt, can you imagine the amount of water that's going to collect? Now, where are they going to put that water? If they don't do anything for it, ditch it somehow or whatever, it's going to go northeast, right into our property. His little pond already drains into our property. I'm not too worried about it because there's only a few days in the spring it does that. That's all right. But not this parking lot. That's ridiculous. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm sorry, and maybe it's me. I didn't get your name, please. We do need it for the minutes.
Your name.
Say your name.
John Dodds.
Thank you, John. Sorry, it probably was me missing something there. Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
I'm gonna ask one more time, but before I close the public meeting again. Is there anybody else from the public who hasn't spoken and wants to speak on this, please? And hearing none, now I really am going to close the public meeting, but please stay online so you can hear the deliberations of the planning committee and what we're going to recommend. So with that, we now have closed the public meeting. I won't open it up again. So with that, let's start the discussions. Diane, we started with you. Any comments? What are your thoughts on this?
Unfortunately, I have a lot of mixed thoughts actually, because what we're hearing from the residents, as you pointed out, Bob, is horrifying. And so on that score, I'm not interested in this application. But then do we close down Menorah Park? And do we shut down Mono Center? I mean, the town itself is in the business of wedding planning, of hosting wedding venues. What about the residents around there? it's an awkward position for us to be in, I think. I'd like to see the reports from the CBC and potentially the NVCA, or at least ensure that council is going to see them before any sort of decision is made. I'm not sure it's our role as a committee. We need to take a lot of things into consideration. I'm not sure it's our role to consider the fact that they've been in non-compliance with our bylaws this entire time, as frustrating as that is. Although we could take that to imply that we couldn't rely upon them to, going forward, comply with bylaws such as fire and waste and noise. So that excuse my opinion, personally. The water runoff, as Mr. Dodds just mentioned, is concerning. That's an environmental issue we should be talking about. The dumping of human waste, the garbage, that's things that our committee should be worried about. Yeah, at this point, I'm inclined to not recommend the application. I just, I'm slightly hesitant about it because I think it puts the town in an awkward position because we ourselves own wedding event venues and run them as such in even closer proximity to residents. So it's a difficult leg for us to stand on as a town. And on its face, it could be a harmless, on its face, I'm not saying it is, I don't want to upset anybody. On its face, a wedding venue could be a relatively harmless business. I mean, they're all over the place. They're all over Caledon. They're up north. They're just south of here. But if it is environmentally damaging, and if it is such a horrible interruption to our residents, then I do hesitate to approve it to council. And with that, I may need to step off sooner than the meeting may end. I apologize for that, but thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Diane. With that, I'm going to remind everybody online that the committee still does have a quorum. So, Diane, are you staying online to vote on a recommendation? Maybe I misunderstood what you just said. Sorry, you're finished with your comments. You're waiting to hear.
Yeah, if you need my vote now, then based on what I've heard from the committee, I would vote not to recommend, but I don't feel as wholeheartedly about it as I have with our previous applications, because I think there's a lot in the mix. Is that okay?
I'm sorry, did I misunderstand you, or do you have to leave now?
I have to leave now. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to be clear on that. Yeah. So thank you, Diane, and thank you for your opinions there. With that,
thank you, everybody.
Thanks. Have a good night. With
Thank
that,
you.
Sorry, Diane. I'm going to say this again, which we need to say this for purposes. The committee still has a quorum of 4 out of 5 of our members. So whatever we will recommend and vote on, which again is a recommendation to council, but as far as the committee goes, it's a legitimate recommendation. So just in case anybody's got any questions about that. Barbara.
What I have to say is that this application, based on what we've heard this evening, the applicant has not demonstrated a conscientious approach to planning and in environmental issues. If we can make a decision on this based on what has been proposed in the bylaw violations, if they are such, I don't think we have a right to. So I'm also opposed to going forward with this application at this time.
Okay, very good, Barbara, thank you. John? Unmute, please, John. John? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, I earlier already made various specific comments on how the applicant and even more so, Mr. Trotman might go about redressing some of the shortcomings of the present application, which I think are many. Two that I'll mention in passing again are the matter of the parking lot, the definition of site alteration, and the application of environmental impact studies to said site alteration. And then secondly, this matter of compliance investigation. And to that end, the latter point, I draw the committee's attention to the concluding sentence from the Dodds in their letter, which is, "We urgently advise that this does not go further than the planning committee and that a thorough review be started to look at how the current operation fits within town of Mono regulations." That would be a good starting point to, I think, clear the air for everybody about what might occur going forward with regard to land use on that property. Just one additional point in passing, and that is that I would advise striking the word seasonable or seasonal from all of this matter. There's no definition of seasonal in the Planning Act or the Provincial Policy Statement. It's a meaningless term. And for us who live in Mono, there is no part of the year that is not seasonal. So I was married on December 27th. It was quite charming and highly seasonal. So it really lends nothing, but in fact lends suspicion to the fact that there is little, maybe less intention than is suggested to limit the scope of operations at this event venue. So finally, I just say, repeat that the advice that would be mine to council would be for refusal, and the rationale being that as per the growth plan, section 2.2.9, I find the application to be incompatible with the character of the surrounding rural landscape and neighborhood. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So John, would you like to put that forward as a motion to the committee, what you've just said? Or a recommendation?
If you suggest that, Mr. Chair, I would, and the recommendation would be to refuse the present application, giving the reason to be in alignment with the provincial growth plan, section 2.2.9, that recreational uses should be limited. And in this case, we find it, the application to be incompatible with the character of the surrounding rural landscape and neighborhood.
Okay, and I'm okay with that. I don't know if we, perhaps you've included this. My biggest concern is the ongoing potential disruption to local residents. Perhaps you've included that in your words. The other.
I take your advice, Mr. Chair. I think my understanding is that a rationale for a refusal should be, succinctly given. But I invite you and others to add particular concerns and conditions to that more specific expression of it.
Well, perhaps
I
because
think that's the right thing to do.
you talked about incompatible use. Perhaps we could just add in such as disrupting local residents.
That's very good. So I'm quite
Is that
willing
it?
to have a such as added to the end of that, and committee members can add. So that's
I think
I can
council,
jot that down if you like, so that if Susan later wishes to get specific wording as I read it out here, I could pass that along to her. What did you want me to add, Bob?
well, just you said incompatible, and I always like to give council as much of our thoughts as possible. So one of the main incompatibilities in my mind is the disruption to local residents. All the rest of it aside, when I talked about the questionable economic benefits and that, we're going to leave that out. But I mean, it's just as valid. So I just to give council a little more information about what our thinking was. Now they have all of the residents' comments and that. So, but they're busy, and oftentimes at council meetings, I'm told they get packages that are 600 pages thick. So, as you know, council does highly value what this committee sends them. So, a little bit more information, I don't think is wrong. I could go. So, if the committee is okay with that as a minor addition to what you're saying, I could go on, and I've got it written down here. I've circled it again. One that I won't get into because it brings up a different can of worms, is that in fact bylaw enforcement in the town, and I ran on 2 elections on this, and it has improved. John Creelman's on here, so don't be upset, John, but bylaw enforcement has improved. But frankly, at this point in time, bylaw enforcement in the town of Mono for noise and all these other things that will be happening at this location is totally inadequate, and it is impossible. So I mean, and somebody mentioned about the noise bylaw, turning down the noise at 11 o'clock at night. Unless that noise bylaw that this committee was involved in drafting years ago, Jerry, you will remember that, unless this council has changed it, in fact, that hour is not 11 o'clock at night, it's 5 o'clock at night. If I'm remembering it correct, I don't believe that they have amended that yet.
No,
but that aside, sorry, Jerry.
No, the other thing that kind of bothers me about this total situation is that from a planning point of view and from a application point of view, I'm not sure that they were forthwith in their comments to this committee. And I say that because it certainly has been going on for 4 or 5 years. I'm not sure who all missed that or whatever, but that's been brought up by other residents as well. And
Jerry, I agree with you, and I think it's a good point. We're not going to put that into our recommendation, but between now and when council hears this, that and the ongoing investigation that Eugene Lammerding, our part-time bylaw enforcement officer, did attend at the property, and that that will come out. John, sorry, I'm talking, but I think you've written something good down there, probably.
Well, I don't think so, but I've written something down here. So if we were to take what I originally said and then add, as you suggested, a such as, we could put something like a little more inclusive, such as disruption to local residents by law enforcement noise, environmental impacts, water supply and sewerage, comma, with special reference to the written comments of neighbors Penny, Dodds, and others.
That sounds great. I agree. I think that gives council enough detailed information. And that, Jerry, Barbara, any comments on what John just said? Barbara, are you still, sorry, there you go.
Is he prepared to put that as a motion? I'd be pleased to second it.
John, you move that?
Yes, I would so move. Would you want me to read it again in its entirety? My goodness.
Sure.
Okay, so the committee recommends refusal of the current application based in general on growth plan section 2.2.9, specifically that the present application is incompatible with the character of the surrounding rural landscape and neighborhood. Specifically with regards to disruption to local residents by law enforcement, noise, environmental impacts, water supply and sewerage, and with special reference to the written comments of neighbors Penny, Dodds, and others.
Very good. That's John's motion. Barbara, were you seconding that?
I will indeed. I
Thank
second.
you. Moved by John Riley, seconded by Barbara Jalaface. Committee members all in favor? Well, we have the mover and seconder. Jerry in favor? I am too. So of the four of us that are left, and if for the purpose of the minutes, so that is passed, that recommendation. For purposes of the minutes before Diane Walmsley had to leave, she had also indicated that she would vote in that same, in a similar way, just, but that's for the minutes. Susan, for the purpose of the official minutes, you'll just be recording the four of us that are still here now, please. Okay. With that, I've lost the agenda. At any rate, that ends the public meeting. Our comments on that. Council will be getting this, then they will be having their discussion on it, and they will make the legal decision on this, since this committee does not have the legal ability to do that. So I think that that's good. With that, any of the applicant or Melanie, and that, you're welcome to stay on. We're just going to talk about other business and adjourn the meeting. And that, so moving on, committee, other business. Does anybody other than myself have anything for other business? And seeing none, then, oh, sorry, Barbara.
No, I'm just saying there's no other business on my part.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to bring one up here because I did write this down. In the past and before COVID, this committee, as did Committee of Adjustment, we had regularly scheduled meetings. And as you can see, we are getting busier. And rather than have the members, waiting month by month to get notification of a meeting, what I wanted to propose, and we've done this for years previously. What I wanted to suggest, and again for the comments from the committee, is that we should set a monthly date, which could be the third Thursday of every month. That we would have that scheduled as a regular monthly planning committee meeting. That doesn't mean that we would always have one, but if I don't know how you work, I put it in my computer planner. It's there. And in the event that we would have nothing, then to me, it's easier to just say, cancel the meeting rather than have emails going out saying, are you available? Am I making any sense here? And does this make sense to committee members? Jerry?
If you can tell me what the weather is and whether I'm going to be combining corn or soybeans, well, that makes total sense.
Yeah,
Jerry.
Jerry, I hear you. If we can finally get away somewhere, I might miss the occasional one too. But I just, Susan has, sending it out with a suggestion. Does this work for everybody? I would rather. My choice is to put it in. Barbara, what do you think?
I agree. It's good to know and it's standard. And as you say, if you have to cancel for whatever reason, you can do so.
Yeah, if there's nothing for us to discuss, then we will cancel it. But at the least, if it's Susan, you Dave, you know this better than I'm sorry, John. I want to get your comment first.
I'm ambivalent. I can adjust just as much as I can, and that's it. And so the dates don't matter to me unless there's a conflict. So
okay,
I'm okay.
You're okay with if we do that, Dave?
Yes.
Dave. Okay, thank you, John. Dave, you're.
All right, thank you, Chair McRae. Yeah, I'm not against it. Though I think the challenge is going to be, because we're so busy, whether we can always make that same date of every month. That said, I would suggest a Thursday. It steers away and around from lead up to council meetings on a Tuesday, department head meetings on a Wednesday. Thursdays generally work well. They have been. My only other comment would be towards the end of the month, but I mean, that makes no difference one way or another. If it's the end of the month, then it would be the same thing for the month after that. There's going to be times though where that may not be possible just because of the way other requirements are going to come at either myself or Susan or others or other staff who may be weighing in on commenting on applications. But
Dave,
I've
been on this committee for over 26 years, and that if we have a fixed date, then it also gives you and Susan something to work towards. And that.
Well, no, I'm not against that, but I'm thinking a Thursday would be best because it works away and around from council and other regularly held meetings on Wednesday.
Well, my suggestion was the third Thursday of every month.
Yeah, that works.
And if we have to cancel it, then it's just me sending out an email to everybody saying no planning committee meeting this month for whatever reason.
I think that would be great.
That'd be Susan sending something saying, "Are you available?" and then waiting for the replies.
Sure. Okay, that's fair.
That to me makes the most sense to manage this thing.
So,
Susan, you're unmuted there.
Yes, I think that
Thursday of every month.
Be great. Yeah, my only comment would be that we wanted to do the same thing with the committee of adjustment, and I think we had the third Thursday of the month in mind for that as well. So.
Committee of adjustment. I thought we were on Tuesdays. Am I missing, or I forget?
We have in
the past had it Tuesdays.
Okay, maybe before I started.
Well,
third Thursday of every month, I think, can work if we have committee of adjustment on the 4th. Well, we'll work committee of adjustment accordingly.
Okay.
We get more regularity there, of course. So
things
people
did. For now, I'd like
did.
Jerry?
I did this for 30 years. It's a telephone company and all over 519 area. And I'll tell you, you could sit here all night and talk and there'll be a manager somewhere who won't be able to show up to a meeting. So I would suggest you pick a night. And if you can't make it, you can't make it, and whatever. That's what you got to do. Like you can sit and go around the table and somebody, well, I'm going to visit my daughter and I'm going to Joe's whatever. And it goes on and on. So my suggestion is, yes, pick it. As John says, if you can't make it, there's 4 other people on the committee and we'll go and do it.
Yeah.
So it's Thursday, that's fine.
I'm suggesting the 3rd Thursday of every month, and that we'll put that in our planners, and then if that's okay with everybody, is that okay? Are we good on that?
Thank you very much.
Let's try it. Yeah, thank you, Diane. We're just to make this process of these. Welcome back, by the way. To make the process of having these meetings easier, as we have done for the previous 25 years, we're setting the 3rd Thursday of every month for the planning committee meeting.
Okay.
If there's nothing to discuss, then myself or Susan will be able to send out an email saying no meeting this month, rather than sending them out saying, can you attend?
Yeah, and it's very likely I should be able to get actual babysitters soon, so we might not be having to have these at 7 o'clock at night anymore if the whole committee doesn't want to. So I'll keep you posted on that. But thank you all for obliging me. I know it's got to be annoying.
Okay, so if that's we're going to do that then. Diane, by the way, we voted unanimously, the 4 of us that were left, to tell council thank you, but no thank you. That to refuse the application, which I think was what you were stating as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So because you weren't there for the vote, I don't want to upset you in that the vote will show as the 4 of us who were there for the vote. But then I did give some talk about that you had indicated. So
yeah, I am comfortable with that because I think there's a lot to this vote. But anyway, so that's good. That's good for me. That works actually well.
Okay, very good. With that, that's all the business that I'm done with. We've gone on a long time here. I think we've had a very good meeting. And I think that we're giving council a good recommendation with some specifics that they can deal with, and that. So thank you, everybody, for that. If nobody else has anything, then we'll call. I don't think we need to call a vote for adjourning. We'll just adjourn the meeting at 8:48, my computer says.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Hi, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Well done. Great job. Well thought out. A lot of work on this. I really appreciate everything that everybody's done. We did good work tonight. So,
Bye, everybody.
With that, Andrew, have you turned off the recording?